Hey guys, welcome to Whispers of Charleston. My name is Savannah. Today we're going to do a small story. We're going to go down to Edisto Island. So Edisto Island is about 45 miles south of Charleston, so it's about an hour drive. So if you were to look at a map of Charleston, Edisto Island is smack dab between Charleston and Hilton Head. It's about 68 square miles with a total of 2,800 year-round residents. The movie Dear John was filmed at this island as well as Sullivan's Island. So we're going to go down to a little tiny church on Edisto Island called the Presbyterian Church. The church itself was built in 1831, but the land it sat on was found around 1795, and around 1797 is when people started to get interred at the churchyard. But then that was when they decided around 1831 to go ahead and build that church. So we're going to talk about a special young lady who I love talking about. Her name is Juila Legare. Her story does begin around the mid 1800s. So she did visit her family who lived in Edisto Island. So back then, they didn't have cars, so everything was, horse buggy. So they lived in Charleston, and her family had a plantation on Edisto Island. So she would go visit her grandfather, and most of the people in town knew that her and her grandfather were best friends. They were tied at the hips, so everywhere he went, she was right there with him. Ran all the errands with him. They went out to lunch in the town together, so they were always there together. They were best friends, and they absolutely loved and adored another. So, unfortunately, that last summer that Julia went to go visit her grandfather, she fell ill with diphtheria. So while diphtheria raged through her throat, stole her breath, and slowly pulled her deeper and deeper into a darkness where she slipped into a coma, where death mimicked itself. Her loved ones kept vigil beside her, hoping and praying that she would stir, but she never did. So in an age before modern equipment, a local doctor searched for a heartbeat, searched for breath, but couldn't detect it, couldn't find it. So finally, with a heavy voice, he decided to go ahead and declare Julia dead. So at 22, at a very young age, well, I guess back then it was a little bit older, that's kind of mean to say, but at 22, she passed away. Diphtheria was a pretty scary thing that back then they didn't really know what it was. That and yellow fever was a pretty scary thing for them. So back in those days, customs for the family were pretty swift, and bombing wasn't around then. So the families had to move very quickly to get that decaying body buried and away from were still healthy and thriving, because they didn't want the people who were alive to get sick with whatever it is that person may have had. So before the sun had finally set, Julia Legare's body was carried into the cold stone mausoleum at the Edisto Island Presbyterian Church. Her kin laid her gently inside, whispered their last goodbyes, and sealed the massive marble door behind her. For 15 long years, that door stayed shut. Then death touched the Legare family again. The tomb was opened to receive another loved one, and that would have been Julia's younger brother, who had died of yellow fever. But when they opened the heavy door, what they saw inside was disturbing. The family stepped into the dim vault and froze. There lay Julia's remains, but not in the place where they had left her. Instead, her bones were crumpled near the entrance, her skeletal fingers sprawled against the marble door as though clawing for freedom. The realization hit them that Julia was not dead, and that they had unfortunately buried her alive. Her heartbeat must have been too faint, her breath was too shallow, and that was that was all something that the doctor could not detect. So there she sat alone in the dark, sealed beside her ancestors. Julia must have woken up. She had screamed, she had pounded, and she had scraped her fingers down to the bones till she ran out of strength and breath, but no one could hear her. That's how she truly died, imprisoned in stone, terrified and alone. Her body re-entombed her, grief-stricken beyond the words. The marble door was shut and sealed again, but Julia's story didn't end there. Not long after Julia's final burial, strange things began to happen. One night, a clergyman walking through the cemetery noticed that the mausoleum door standing slightly ajar. Thinking nothing of it, he closed the heavy door, but then the next morning he found it open again. So began the cycle that would last for decades. The door would be closed, sometimes even sealed with iron chains, or fitted with new locks, but for some unknown reason, at some unknown hour of the night, it would creak open again as though pushed by an invisible, desperate hands. Locals whispered that Julia was trying to escape. The church tried everything. They strengthened the door, reinforced the frame, and even installed a heavy mechanism meant to keep it firmly shut. But nothing worked. Even the final attempts, a door requiring industrial machinery to remove, didn't work. It mysteriously came off the hinges, torn free as though torn off by something unseen, with unseen forces from within. It was then the community shuddered. They left the mausoleum door open permanently. Even today, visitors walk straight into the mausoleum without having to push anything open. Some believe that by keeping the door open, they granted Julia the freedom she was denied in her life. Others feel a dense heaviness in the air in the tomb, as though someone watches them. Maybe Julia, maybe her brother, is still in there, making sure that no one is ever sealed in her tomb ever again. So a lot of the haunting encounters will be people who are just frightened. They hear the scratching, they get the cold sensations. Excuse me. When there was one evening when there was a tourist that had walked up to the mausoleum. It was near closing time, and this person's name was Marissa. So she lingered near the mausoleum long after a group had left. She had heard the legend of Julia Legare her whole life and wanted a moment alone inside the tomb. Everything was quiet except for the soft sing of the cicadas. When Marissa stepped into the mausoleum, the air turned cold, unnaturally cold. Her breath came out in a faint white cloud. "Hello," she whispered, half embarrassed. The silence grew thicker. Then came the sound of a soft, scraping whisper against the stone. Marissa spun around. No one was there. She left her phone to record, but the screen flickered, glitched, then froze entirely. Another sound echoed from behind her, 3 slow taps on the marble floor. Marissa backed toward the opening doorway, pulse racing. As she crossed the threshold, something brushed her arm, cold as the inside of a freezer. She ran until she reached a parking lot. When she finally looked down at her arm, she saw faint white marks across her skin, 4 long lines, the scratching of fingers desperately trying to escape. Excuse me. No, I have been to that mausoleum, and you definitely get a very eerie and odd feeling. Being a mother, I definitely feel it more because I have a small child. I've had several friends of mine who have stayed in that mausoleum overnight, and they never made it through the night. They've had very weird and strange encounters. They have been grabbed. They've heard the scratching. They've heard a little girl's cry for help. A little girl, screaming. Now, Julia was 22, so we're not sure who or what this little girl screaming is coming from. We don't know if it is maybe an evil entity, or maybe that was just the echoes of Julia screaming in the background. We don't know, but it definitely is haunted. Many people have had many experiences in this mausoleum. I'm a little too scared to stay long enough in it, but I have definitely felt weird standing around it. I have had one encounter going up to the church. This was a couple years ago. I was by myself, and as I was walking, I had pulled up to the church, parked, and I had gotten out, and I was, walking through the cemetery, the graveyard, and I noticed a gentleman, probably in his late 30s, maybe 40s, all in black. I'm not sure if he was a preacher, a pastor. I couldn't tell you. But he was wearing all black and he was just standing there. So he kind of watched me as I walked through the cemetery. I said, hey, hi, hello. And, minded my own business. And it was like 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was, late spring, early summer. So everything was in full bloom and cicadas were going. You could hear the crickets and the frogs. So I had gone up to the mausoleum and just stood there. And I did get kind of cold. My hair stood up. And I said, okay, well, hey, Julia, my name is Savannah. I live in Charleston. I just wanted to come say hi and kind of see what you were about. So something told me to turn around. And sure enough, there was that guy just sitting there staring at me. And I was like, okay, this is probably my hint to leave. So as I left, I walked back through the cemetery, walked up to my car, got in, and there was no other cars around. There was, no one on that road on 17A, which is the alternative Highway 17, which is a main highway that goes through Charleston. So when it gets to Edisto Island, it turns into 17A, which is alternative 17 highway. There was no cars driving on that highway. It was just, me and myself. And I had drove down to the little stand and I was asking one of the ladies, and I just told her what I happened to see. And she just kind of chuckled and she goes, I don't think you want to know what that was. So I don't know what that was, and I don't think I want to know what that was, but I will leave it at that. So y'all tell me what y'all think about that. So if y'all do, please come visit my Facebook page for the group. It's called Whispers of Charleston Facebook group. It's a page, it's a group, so please come join. I'm getting everything started, so please bear with me with this, guys. Thank you to everyone who is listening. If y'all have any comments, questions, or concerns, email me at whispersofcharleston@gmail. No, I'm sorry, charlestonwhispers@gmail. I will find a way to put it in the show notes. I'm still trying to learn how to do all that. But if y'all join the Facebook page, the email is in that Facebook page. So please come join. I'm trying to get a page up together. I'm going to try to do an Instagram account for the podcast today. So with that, all right, my little bats, just remember, don't leave any stone unturned unless you're at the cemetery. Then you might not want to touch that. So thank y'all again for listening to Whispers of Charleston, where the streets whisper, but are you listening close enough to what they have to say? All right, bye y'all.